What actually makes a microcontroller useful? It's not the CPU, neither is it the memory. It's the pins. Without them, your microcontroller is completely cut off from the real world. These tiny metallic connections are what allow your code to control LEDs, read sensors, and interact with hardware. In this video, we are going to break it all down. You'll learn how microcontroller pins are grouped into ports, how these ports interact with the CPU, and how the code you write directly controls them. If you are a hobbyist or you are planning to build your own microcontroller-based product, this is one concept you absolutely need to understand. Even though we'll be using a simple 8-bit microcontroller as our example, the ideas you learn here apply to almost every microcontroller out there. So let's go step by step, and by the end of this video, you understand exactly how to interface with and control GPIO pins. To better understand how to use GPIO pins, we first need to understand their hardware structure. The Atmega 328B microcontroller has three main ports: Port B, Port C, and Port D. Port B and Port D each contain 8 pins, while Port C contains 7 pins. These pins are used for almost everything the microcontroller does. They are used when uploading code, receiving inputs from sensors or push buttons, and sending output to other devices. Each port has 3 associated 8-bit registers. These registers are the data direction register, the port register, and the pin register. Each register has a unique memory address that the CPU can access. Every register performs a specific task that allows the port to function properly. The data direction register controls whether a pin acts as an input or an output. Pins are indexed starting from 0. Writing a value of 1 to a pin index configures that pin as an output. Writing a 0 configures the pin as an input. The pin register holds the current state of pins that are configured as inputs. In other words, this is where the microcontroller reads incoming signals before processing them. The port register is used when sending data out of the microcontroller. The CPU writes values to this register, and those values appear on pins configured as outputs. It is important to note that the pins within the same ports can have different directions. Some can be inputs, while others are outputs. On the Arduino Uno board, the pins of port D correspond to digital pins D0 to D7. The pins of port B corresponds to D8 to D13. The port originally has 8 pins, but 2 of them are used as clock source in the Arduino board design. The pins of port C correspond to A0 to A5. The 7th pin of this port is used for the reset line on the Arduino board. Finally, the memory address of all these ports are very important when programming a microcontroller from scratch. These addresses can be found in the Atmega 328P datasheet. Now let's write a firmware program to make use of the ports we just discussed. We will start by cleaning up the code from our last video. However, this time we will include the io.h header file from the AVR library because we need it to access the predefined register symbols. First, we wire our circuit. Connect an LED to pin D8 on the Arduino board. This pin corresponds to pin 0 of port B on the Atmega 328P microcontroller. The register symbols we need are already defined in the io.h header file. So all we need to do is use those symbols in our code. Inside the main function, we configure pin 0 of port B as an output. We do this by setting the corresponding bit in the data direction register. Next, we set that same pin using the port B register, which drives the LED. Now we save the code and run make upload to compile and upload the program, and it runs. We have successfully used the microcontroller to communicate with the outside world. Now let's do the opposite. Let's allow the outside world to communicate with the microcontroller. We will adjust our circuit by adding a push button connected to pin D7 on the Arduino board. This corresponds to pin 7 of port D on the Atmega 328P. The other terminal of the push button is connected to 5 volts. This means that whenever the button is pressed, the pin becomes logic high. In our code, we configure all pins of port D as inputs. Then we use an if statement to check the state of pin 7. Only when pin 7 read as 1 should the LED turn on. Otherwise, the LED should remain off. To check this condition, we use the binary value 10000000. We expect all other pins to remain low because they are not connected, and only pin 7 should go high when the button is pressed. Now we save and run make upload, but something is wrong. The program does not behave as expected. Why? The reason is that metallic wires behave like antennas. They can pick up electromagnetic waves from the environment and convert them into tiny electrical signals. So when microcontroller pins are left unconnected, they can pick up random electromagnetic noise. This noise can sometimes be strong enough for the microcontroller to interpret the pin as logic high. To confirm this, let's modify our condition. Instead of checking 10000000, we will check 11111111. Now we save and run make upload again. You will notice that the LED turns on even when the button is not pressed. This confirms that floating pins can randomly read high due to electromagnetic interference. In real systems, this can be a serious problem. Imagine a safety-critical system behaving unpredictably because of floating inputs. To prevent this, we use pull-up or pull-down resistors. In digital electronics, a pin should always have a defined default state, either high or low. A pull-up resistor connects the pin to the power supply voltage through a high-value resistor. This keeps the pin high by default until something pulls it low. A pull-down resistor connects the pin to ground through a resistor. This keeps the pin low by default until something drives it high. Fortunately, the Atmega 328P microcontroller provides internal pull-up resistors on every port pin. When a pin is configured as input, writing a 1 to the corresponding bit in the port register enables the internal pull-up resistor. This saves us from adding external resistor to most input pins. So after configuring all the pins of port D as inputs using the data direction register, we enable the internal pull-ups by writing 1s to the port D register. In our circuits, we now connect the other terminal of the push button to ground instead of 5 volts. Next, we update our if statement to check the binary value 01111111. This works because all the pins will normally read high due to the pull-ups, and pin 7 will go low when the button is pressed. Now we save the code and run make upload again. This time, the program works exactly as expected. When the button is pressed, the microcontroller detects the inputs and controls the LED correctly. We can even reverse the logic so that the LED turns off whenever the button is pressed. Although writing to registers directly with binary seems intuitive and straightforward because it shows directly what each port register should look like, it is actually dangerous. Imagine a situation where two pins of the same port have opposite directions. After configuring both pins through the data direction register and enabling the internal pull-up resistor through the port register, we later forget and try to turn on only the pin that is set as output. If we write a new binary value to the register, we may accidentally overwrite the bit that enables the internal pull-up resistor. This creates a silent bug. Your code will compile successfully. It will upload to the microcontroller without any error, but physically, the circuit will not behave the way you expect. This is one of the many problems associated with writing direct binary values to registers. Another problem is that binary values are difficult to maintain. If you later want to modify a single bit, you may have to search through the entire program to find every place where that register value was written. To avoid these problems, embedded programmers use a technique known as bit masking. Bit masking allows us to modify only the specific bits we care about, while leaving all other bits in the register unchanged. There are 4 core bit masking operations that makes this possible. The first operation is setting a bit. Sometimes we want to turn a specific bit on without changing any other bits in the register. This is done using the bitwise OR operation. We create a mask where the bit we want to modify is set to 1, while all other bits are 0. When we perform a bitwise OR between the register and this mask, the selected bit becomes 1, while the remaining bit stays exactly the same. This works because in an OR operation, any bit ORed with 1 becomes 1, while any bits ORed with 0 remain unchanged. The second operation is clearing a bit. In this case, we want to force a particular bit to 0 while keeping all other bits unchanged. This is done using the bitwise AND operation together with the NOT operator. We first create a mask where the target bit is set to 1. Then we invert the mask so that the target bit becomes 0 and all other bits becomes 1. When we perform a bitwise AND between the register and this inverted mask, the selected bit becomes 0 while the rest of the register remains unchanged. This works because in an AND operation, any bit AND with 0 becomes 0, while any bit AND with 1 keeps its original value. The third operation is toggling a bit. Toggling means flipping the value of a bit. If the bit is 0, it becomes 1, and if it is 1, it becomes 0. This is done using the bitwise exclusive OR operation. We create a mask where the bit we want to toggle is set to 1. When we perform an exclusive OR operation between the register and this mask, that bit changes its state while the other bits remain unchanged. This works because a bit exclusive ORed with 1 flips its value, while a bit exclusive ORed with 0 stays the same. The fourth operation is checking or reading a bit. Sometimes we do not want to modify the register at all. Instead, we simply want to know whether a particular bit is currently set or cleared. This is done using the bitwise AND operation with a mask. We create a mask where only the bit we want to check is set to 1. When we perform an AND operation between the register and this mask, the result will be non-zero if the bit is set and 0 if the bit is cleared. This allows us to read the state of a specific pin or hardware flag without affecting the rest of the register. These 4 operations form the foundation of safe register manipulations in embedded system programming. By using bit masking, we can control individual pins and hardware features without accidentally changing the configuration of other bits in the same register. Whenever we create a variable in C, the compiler stores that variable at a specific location in memory. Every location in memory has a unique address. We can keep track of this address using pointers. A pointer in C is a special type of variable that stores the memory address of another variable. For example, if a variable is stored somewhere in memory, a pointer can store the address of that location so that the program can access it later. There are 2 important operations associated with pointers. The first operation is pointer assignment. Suppose we create an integer variable called x and assign it to the value 6. If we create another variable that is a pointer to an integer, we can make it point to x. We do this using the address of operator. This is the ampersand symbol. When we place the ampersand in front of a variable, it returns the memory address where that variable is stored. So if we write ampersand x, we obtain the address of x. We can then store that address inside the pointer variable. The second operation is called dereferencing. Dereferencing allows us to access the value stored at the memory address that a pointer is pointing to. We perform dereferencing using the asterisk symbol placed before the pointer. When the asterisk is used with the pointer, it tells the program to go to the memory address stored in the pointer and retrieve the value located there. So while the pointer stores an address, Dereferencing the pointer gives us the actual value stored at that address. Now let's customize our symbols for each register. Since we have full control, we can name each register whatever we like. At this point, we no longer need the IO header file. For reference, we place the address of the registers at the top of our code and then define symbols for each one. To do this, we first typecast the register address into a volatile unsigned 8-bit pointer. Typecasting simply means changing a value from one data type to another. In this case, we are converting a raw address into a pointer. The volatile keyword tells the compiler that the value at this address can change at any time outside the program's control. So the compiler must always read directly from memory instead of caching the value. We use an unsigned 8-bit data type because the register is 8 bits wide and registers do not store negative values. Now that the address is treated as a pointer, we can use the dereference operator to access the value stored at that address. With this, we have successfully created our own register symbols from scratch. Although this works perfectly, it is still good practice to follow the manufacturer's naming convention so that others can easily understand your code. And then we test our new symbols and they work perfectly. Now let's have some fun. We are going to build some of the popular Arduino IDE functions from scratch using what we have learned so far. First, we define a function called pin mode. This function takes two 8-bit values, the pin number and the mode. We also define some keywords to represent modes like input and output. Next, we handle the mapping between Arduino pin numbers and actual microcontroller ports. Since Arduino numbering is unified, but the hardware ports are not, we use conditional statements to determine which ports the pin belongs to. For example, if the pin falls under port B, we subtract 8 from the pin's number to align it with the port's bit position. Then based on the selected mode, we configure the corresponding bit in the data direction register. Next is the digital write function. This function is very similar to pin mode, but instead of configuring directions, it writes to the output register. It takes the pin number and the state, so we define keywords like high and low. Finally, we define the digital read function. This function takes a single argument, which is the pin number, and returns a value. We use bit masking to check the state of the input register. If the bit is set, we return 1. If it is not set, we return 0. Now inside our main function, we can use these functions just like we would in the Arduino IDE. You might be wondering why we didn't use port C. There is no special reason. We just didn't include it in this example. That's all for this video. In the next one, we'll start working with timers. Please consider subscribing, liking and sharing this video. Until next time.